Dandadan's Amnesia arc is being completely misunderstood, so I think it would do good to recontextualize the entire discussion around this talking point, because the way it is being framed right now is very narrow, it's very reactionary. So after the end of Dandadan chapter 159, Okarun confesses his love to Momo Ayase in one of the most based moments in the series. And Momo tells him that when they both get out of there, they will confess their feelings properly and communicate. Since then, they have not done that. Since then, we've gotten the Kozuka knives, Typhoon Human, Shimane, and now the Six Curses arc. Since then, there has been a vocal, valid part of the fandom that feels frustrated that this has been a clear step backward. This has led even more to believe that Momo and Okarun's relationship has been unfairly reset to zero and to pad out the story with unnecessary amnesia, creating a love triangle and unnecessary drama. However, if we look deeper into, well, below the murky depths and beyond the frustrations with the amnesia, I do think there is a brilliant and quite frankly largely unexplored angle that allows us to recontextualize this conversation and actually gets to the core of why this is happening and why our frustrations and worries could just be entirely unfounded. But before we jump in, let's get this video to 500 likes, 15 new subs, and if you're on mobile, hype this one up, guys and gals. This one's an important video. So pre-Amnesia arc, Momo was the more forward member in their dynamic, and that makes sense because Momo fits the Gyaru trope who initiates a lot of their interactions. She's the one to constantly stir Okarun to action. The entire first saga of Dandadan's plot really revolves around Okarun just obviously finding his balls, metaphorically and physically. Because by having that story play out, Okarun is trying to find himself and step up to Momo's passion. So we see a lot of brave moments from him, like what we saw in chapter 159. This felt like a culmination for Okarun's character. He finally was able to step up and lay his feelings out on the line. But they weren't definitive. It was all in the heat of the moment, full of emotion. That's not to say that Okarun didn't mean what he said, but that this wasn't a definitive confession as people thought it in reality was, or as people actually tend to make it out to be. Which I understand, hearing that is frustrating if you want the instant payoff, but that's the thing, this is okay, some things can actually play out and be better for it. The amnesia actually is good here because it flips this dynamic on its head. Okarun, because of Momo's absent memories, can no longer afford to be timid and to be a too shy boy. Let's look at it this way. He is now forced to make his intentions clear and be in the role that Momo was in the first saga. This is so his character is forced to be under stress that forces him to fight. Momo's heart and her memories are now on the line, and those are the stakes. We see this is the case in moments where Okarun, instead of giving in chapter 211, marches his ass right on over to Momo after having a setback. This is just one moment where he found the courage to do it, and there are many other moments like it, and I think another one of those is likely to come by the end of the Six Curses arc. But what comes along with this is setbacks from time to time. Because Okarun, after just one confession, isn't going to change overnight. There still needs to be incremental progress because Okarun no longer has Momo to rely on. That's the tension point here. Okarun no longer should be defined by Momo's agency, but of his own agency. While frustrating, this does take some time to pull off well. This is why I typically don't find this use of amnesia bad or padding. It's not padding when the end goal is trying to get Okarun to have his own agency as a character. The way this arc should end is with Okarun being a full-fledged man. Okarun needs to become less reactionary and more of himself, of who he truly is. That is only achievable through these specific sets of circumstances, which to me is highly creative. And it is creative because of the knock-on effect it has for the rest of the plot. This gets into Count Saint Germain, and it's no mistake that right after that confession, Jeremy debuted in the plot as the main antagonist of this current saga. That's because Jeremy is an opportunist. We can see this very clearly with how he gets the shinobi woman to infiltrate the group, aiding the Dum-Da-Dums to lock Momo's memories from Chapter 1, which is where she gained her powers. And that moment is important too, because in Chapter 1, Momo fell in love with Okarun because of how he acted like, Ken Takakura when he gave his all to protect his waifu for Laifu. Momo only has her powers because of the fact that she loves Okarun. Without her memories, why would she have her powers, This all weaves into Jeremy's plot to create the ultimate yokai, which hinges on the Dum-Da-Dums being separated and without Momo as their leader. Jeremy, who is regarded as probably the best antagonist by mostly everyone thus far, is only as effective as he is because of the amnesia. This is a creative way to effectively make the issue with amnesia nearly non-existent. That is because you take away the padding issue. And believe me, I fully accept people have made up their minds and don't care when I say this. But I'm still right about this because the Jeremy character is the basis for why all of this is happening. It's like seeing the forest for the trees. Jeremy is the reason for all of this happening, and the sooner this is found out, the more they can move on. But let's pull back a moment. Let's go back to Okarun, because there is also the Pinocchio connection, which strengthens the narrative ties too. The Pinocchio story ties directly into the Six Curses arc specifically. This is because Okarun is trying to lie to himself about losing Momo and finding something in Aira. Now, I've said for months now that Six Curses feels like Bizarro World for that reason. Okarun has hit a point where he can either mope about his predicament and choose the easy way out, which is the Aira, I've got more brain damage than a toaster strudel Latori, or he can build up the gumption to see that there is urgency in the air and there is no time for falling back into the old ways of the Okarun before Momo. It's the ultimate test of love and heightens the payoff, because otherwise people will say that Okarun wasn't enough of his own character before, that he's just another shonen in C who gets the baddie because autism and goes through 0 trials to get her. To me, that's boring, but having both Okarun and Momo be equal, that's healthy. That's actually how relationships work, and it stops the comments of Okarun inevitably being called a simp. That's the payoff here, which is why Okarun lying to himself makes him Pinocchio. He knows deep down this is wrong and that he is making a mistake. He is lying to his truest self, which is why he is not going to make the mistake. The Six Curses arc and this saga as a whole is forcing Okarun to confront his deepest fear of returning to that place of isolation and to face it like a man with both of his balls to prove he has grown. In return, this heightens love and sends a positive message to boys who read this story that love isn't about fairy tales, it is about being true to what you stand on and for, to make great sacrifices in the face of demanding trials. Love isn't something you feel, mi amigo, it's something you do. Just as you breathe, just as you walk. Love is a verb, it is not a noun. And that's what the story is trying to get across here. But hold up! The big argument I'm seeing is that we are wasting time, and that nothing new is happening in the story, especially with Momo. The big talking point is that Momo has completely regressed. I view this way differently than most, because I don't think Momo has regressed at all. I'm not sure what this infatuation with buzzwords are in the shonen community in the last couple of years, but it's not even close to describing what Momo has actually gone through in this arc. Because, surprise, you can't define things with one word, or buzzwords. We are used to Momo being the kick-ass Gyaru who does and takes what she wants. This is largely due to her overpowered ability as well, which has led to so many amazing moments. However, with Momo losing her memories, she has lost all of these abilities. And that is mirroring Okarun because it's left her isolated, confused, and vulnerable. That's important because it's another angle that both Momo and Okarun share in their continued romance. It hurts them both, and they're experiencing all of these same feelings. Due to this new and unique dynamic in her character, we're being showcased an incredibly soft and less guarded Momo Ayase. That's valuable because when we finally get the big moment where her memories return, there will be a common and mutual understanding. Because the focal point, the message here, is that they will both understand why they need to be strong for one another and that they complete one another. Momo understands what it is like to lose the person she loved and how that effectively erased her entire personality. That is a brilliant message because it's the same for Okarun as well. Losing Momo turned Okarun right back into the nerdy shy boy with no personality he was before Chapter 1. That's the real regression that the story is trying to not let happen. It's a love story, and it's one of the many fibers in that love story that makes Okarun and Momo so great. They experience everything together even when they are separated, even when they lose themselves in the music, the moment you want it. Both are going through the same isolation, the same confusion, and the same vulnerability. All because one man is trying to destroy them and their found family. I think Tatsu should be unapologetic in how he writes this because this is love at its most darkest. This is the lowest point in the series' history, and it needs to feel like it. Whether or not you like it, that's different. That's subjective. But the intent is clear, and the story is on the right track and developing the love story the way it should be developing. And I got one final point to blow the door off this motherfricker. The payoff will be earned. It cannot be given away. If Tatsu had decided to let Momo and Okarun get together at the end of the last saga, their relationship would not be between equals and would not feel earned. It would feel like any other unearned romance in a shonen. But by tearing down the foundations to the bare essence, we see a story ensuring its readers that when Momo and Okarun finally do get that one true moment where they reveal their feelings bare, then their relationship will be built on an unshakable foundation with a deliberate emphasis on real love. Because this gets rid of the suspension bridge effect so that their entire relationship won't just be built on life or death shonen battles. They won't be bonded together just because. It will be because they both chose one another and are sure of it. That requires patience, and patience is clearly a virtue. Some will say 70 plus chapters is more than enough, that 159 chapters should have been the end. Scratch that. The space globalist arc should have been the end of the series. Which to me, that's a big tell. It's a tell that the people who say this kind of thing don't really get Dandadan or as big of a fan as they say they are. Clearly they are fans, don't get me wrong, but the way the discourse has been discoursed into repetitive talking points harping over and over the same phrases, it's just, I don't know. It's clear to me that the people who believe that the series should have ended in the beginning of the series, essentially, they're really not the people we should be taking the opinions of this seriously. But look at me. That's what I'm doing. So who knows? Maybe another video coming this week will be on if the series should have really ended in the space globalist arc. What do you think? Is everything I said here wrong? Or is everything I said here right? Or somewhere in the middle? Check out my other Dandadan videos here. Make it a great day or not. The choice is yours.